There's been something on my mind recently, and I feel like this is the perfect opportunity for me to finally sit down and talk about it, since my life has gotten sort of back on track, and now I have more time for making videos again. And the thing that's been on my mind anyway, is the fact that there is no reason to own an Xbox anymore, at least not to me. And I think that sort of just boils down to the simple fact that Microsoft has kind of destroyed the brand in the past few years. And for me personally, it's hard to pinpoint an exact moment where it started to take a downturn, because really you could go as far back as 2012 with Halo 4. The problem there being that Halo 4 probably should have been delayed another year or two so that it could be an Xbox One launch title rather than a late 360 title. And just, I feel like Halo in and of itself is a pretty good barometer, a good way to measure at least how Microsoft has handled the Xbox brand, right? Because you have Halo 1 coming with the launch of the original Xbox, and it just completely blew everyone out of the water. It revolutionized first-person shooters on console to the point that almost every first-person shooter today can trace its control scheme back to Combat Evolved in some way or another. A 2-weapon swap limit, offhand grenades, aiming with the right stick and moving with the left stick, the list goes on. And then you have Halo 2, which came out on the original Xbox as well, but revolutionized online play by allowing people to matchmake with strangers. And that, obviously, is something that still happens today in a much different form, or many different forms, considering that skill-based matchmaking is one of the biggest topics in online discussions today. I guess you could call it engagement-optimized matchmaking, because that's more so what it is these days. But still, Halo 2 revolutionized that, being able to just queue up with random strangers and find games that you wanted to play. They invented the party system, the party chat system, clans, all that stuff started in Halo 2. Then we get to Halo 3, and Halo 3 is truly the watershed moment, I think, for Xbox, because you have Halo 3 coming out. It's got campaign, it's got multiplayer, it's got Forge, it's got custom games. On top of that, the Xbox 360 was just a console that, you had to have. If you wanted to play Halo 3, you had to have an Xbox 360. And everybody wanted to play Halo 3. Halo was on top of the world in 2007. It was the biggest franchise ever. And the popularity of Halo sort of boosted Microsoft's worth in the industry, and I think that was partially what helped them to be able to secure deals like with Call of Duty, where they would get all of the DLC. I think it was only a month earlier. It wasn't a year. For some reason, my mind wants to say a year, but it was definitely a month early, So you had Halo, the biggest thing on the planet in 2007 in terms of gaming, and then you had Call of Duty, which was right there beside Halo. In fact, it would overtake Halo in the years to come. And even though Call of Duty wasn't an Xbox exclusive, if you wanted to play any new map packs a month early, you had to have it on Xbox. But then from there, everything just sort of went downhill. Halo 4 released in 2012, the Xbox 360 released in 2013, or not the Xbox 360, the Xbox One released in 2013, and Halo 4 was a very lukewarm received game. A lot of people, I think Halo 4 is sort of that game where you either love it or you hate it, which is weird for me to say because it sort of oscillates for me depending on literally where the sun is in the sky, where the earth is in the rotation around the sun, depending on the seasons of life, I suppose. I would say I like Halo 4, but it's definitely not the game that the Halo community needed after Halo Reach. And even Halo Reach was pretty divisive when it came out, But I would say Halo 4 was really the downturn point, the beginning of the downturn point for the Halo franchise, just like the Xbox One was the beginning of the downturn point for Microsoft. In fact, this might seem strange because it really doesn't feel like this should be the case, but it is a fact that the PS3 actually outsold the Xbox 360 by the end of that generation, which, again, you just think, you're like, how? Like, the Xbox was on top from, like, 2005 to 2012-ish. But yeah, it's a fact. Just at the end of that generation, the PS3 outsold the Xbox 360. So, and obviously, everybody knows going into the next generation how bad Microsoft fumbled the bag with the Xbox One. We're talking, required use of a Kinect, which was bundled with the console and drove the price up of the console. It was an add-on, accessory, feature, gimmick, whatever you want to call it, that nobody wanted or really used. There was the always online requirement, meaning you had to have an internet connection to even use the console. And I remember very distinctly a lot of people being upset at, I cannot remember the guy's name, I should have looked it up before I started recording, but the guy who was like, he did an interview and he said something like, oh, well, if you don't have an internet connection, we have a product that can be used offline. It's called the Xbox 360, and it's like, what a tone deaf, stupid thing to say, honestly. Like, literally saying, oh, you can't afford a good internet connection, or maybe there's no good internet where you live. Sucks, buddy. Might as well just stay on the old console. Like, what? That's ridiculous. I mean, that, and then there was the whole thing about, like, you can't buy pre-owned games. You couldn't use pre-owned games on the console, which Sony absolutely just dunked on them for with that little video of the two guys sharing a game disc. And they're like, it's that easy to share games on PlayStation. Like, bro, you fucked up when Sony can make a 5-minute video showing two guys sharing a game and being like, wow, it's that easy. You know what I mean? And I guess to give Microsoft a modicum of credit, they did pretty much walk back everything that I just listed. They did, I think they still bundled the Kinect with the Xbox One for quite a while, but they also released a SKU that didn't have a Kinect. And then they pretty much dropped support for it entirely after like a year, I think. Like, they did not make it a requirement for very long. They changed the always online requirement so that you didn't have to always be online, which was good. That's how it should be. If you buy a game console, you should not be beholden to use it because you have internet. I can't imagine there are very many people out there who can afford a new console that don't have internet, and maybe that's kind of what Microsoft was banking on. But even if I have good internet, which I have pretty good internet right now, I don't want my console to stop working because my internet is down. In fact, I want my console to work because my internet is down, because I want to be able to play my single-player games when I don't have Wi-Fi and can't play multiplayer games. Granted, I don't play a lot of multiplayer these days anyway, but the point still stands. My box shouldn't stop working because my other box stopped working. You know what I'm saying? And obviously, you can buy and use pre-owned games on the system. It's, that was a ridiculous thing, and again, to give them some credit, they did sort of walk back that idea, but the damage was already done, man. The damage was already done with the Xbox One, and then you throw on the Master Chief Collection launch. That launched, I believe, in November of 2014 to coincide with the 10-year anniversary of Halo 2, and if you were there back in the day, you know how bad it was. It was atrocious trying to play this game, even just trying to play single player. It was bad, man. MCC is in a pretty good spot now, and I would say that if you want to experience classic Halo, at least the campaigns, MCC is most certainly the way to go. You have all of the main games you need to have. They all run very well. It's great. And even, what you're seeing on screen right now, this is some gameplay from a mod called Halo 2 Uncut. This is a mod made by fans to restore a lot of the cut features and things from Halo 2, which is why I'm sure you've noticed in the gameplay already that some things look a little bit different. The battle rifle doesn't have its ammo counter, and it's a single fire. stuff like that. That's probably the biggest thing you'll notice right off rip. But yeah, MCC is great now, but it's also 2025, so the game is 11 years old at this point. And even then, they didn't really start seriously updating it until 2019, which was like 5 years after the fact. So again, there's Halo as a sort of barometer for how Xbox is doing. They fumbled the Xbox One hard. Halo was in a disastrous state because of MCC. And even when Halo 5 came out, like, I would say Halo 5 wasn't horribly buggy at launch, at least if memory serves, but it didn't have, like, any content whatsoever. And there was, the rec packs, which was a whole loot box thing, which a lot of games were dealing with at that point. But Halo really didn't need the bad press at the time. The campaign for Halo 5 was god-awful. That's why Halo Infinite pretty much had to come in and be like, yeah, all that stuff that happened in Halo 5, it doesn't matter. We're going to take the bad guy from Halo Wars 2, and he's going to be the main villain now. Yeah, it was just bad. Even though, to give some credit, I did play a lot of Halo 5. I had a lot of fun with that game. I played it with friends all the time, and I met a lot of great people through that game. So it's not the best Halo game by far, but it does sort of have a soft spot in my heart because of the memories I made playing that game, grinding ranks and playing with friends and stuff like that. It was also the first game that I really tried to seriously do on YouTube. Granted, that was on an old channel that I don't think exists anymore, but the point still stands. My content creation sort of dreams really tried to take off there for the first time. But that pretty much brings us to the modern day, right? We have the Series X and the Series S, which the Series S is decent, but it's so underpowered, man. It's so underpowered. Like, if you're going to get an Xbox console, you might as well save up the extra money to get the Series X. But even then, I don't think you should be getting an Xbox console at all right now because the prices of, everything are just crazy. And like I said at the top of this video, there is no reason to own an Xbox because anything you want to play on Xbox can either be played on PC or PlayStation 5. At this point, a lot of the Xbox games are coming to PlayStation 5, and I suspect that's only going to grow as we go into the future because Microsoft is on this kick of everything is an Xbox and exclusives don't matter, which that second statement I have a lot of issues with because exclusives absolutely do matter. Now, do I think that you should landlock a game to a console forever? No. I also think that it shouldn't matter what box you have in your living room or your office or whatever. You should be able to play any game you want. And I think that's why Sony has done such a good job with it because they release a lot of their key titles on PlayStation first, right? The one that comes to mind for me is like Ghost of Yotei right now. It is out on PlayStation 5, but there are plans for it to come to PC. I don't know exactly when. I don't know if they've said exactly when they're going to be bringing it to PC, but I mean, Ghost of Tsushima was the same thing. That released on PS4, and I believe it came out on PS5 and PC either at the same time or around the same time. But either way, it was like a year or so, a couple years after the fact, right? So I have full faith that a game like Ghost of Yotei is going to come to PC. Now, I would also like it to come to Xbox just because it would be nice for everybody to be able to play it. But I can see why Sony wouldn't want to bring it to Xbox, even though it could run just fine on a Series X. And that is because it would water down their brand. It would water down the PlayStation vibe of Ghost of Yotei. And even playing it on PC, I don't think really waters it down that much. You know what I mean? Like, having it on one other platform, it's still like, this is a PlayStation game first. And it was a PlayStation game first. Whereas, when you just day one go multiplat on everything, it really waters down the identity of the game and of your platform. I think, again, that's why Sony and Nintendo have stayed so strong in the space for as long as they have. Nintendo, they really hold on to their IPs. You cannot play Zelda or Mario or Metroid or, whatever first-party Nintendo game you might be a fan of. You cannot play those on other consoles unless you pirate a game or legally dump your ROMs and use them on an emulator on PC, which is what you should be doing. Please do not pirate games. Just don't do it. I know. It's a whole nother video, a whole nother topic. But anyway, I think that's why Nintendo has been able to retain their identity so strongly for like however many years they've been in video games, like 40 something years they've been in video games. And Sony is pretty much the same way. A lot of their stuff only released on PlayStation. Now, like I said, they're sort of shifting more towards a dual release where it comes out first on PlayStation and then later on PC. Xbox, it's just everything is everywhere all the time. So why would you own an Xbox? Why would you need to own an Xbox? Unless you just hate Sony and Nintendo so much that you refuse to buy their platforms to play games, and you only want to use Game Pass, so you buy an Xbox. Okay, but why are you buying into Microsoft if you hate Sony and Nintendo so much? Microsoft is arguably worse than Sony and Nintendo. You know, that's a whole nother topic again for a whole nother day, but I don't see it anymore. I don't see a value in owning an Xbox, and that really hurts. That really hurts for me to say, right? My first console technically was a PlayStation 1 that I got hand-me-down from my older brother because he got an Xbox. But I also played a ton of Halo on his Xbox. And when I was older and I got my Xbox 360, all I wanted to do was play Halo, right? It got me into the ecosystem, and then from there, everything I bought on Xbox 360. Not to mention the fact that along the way, I just have so many memories with an Xbox associated, right? The first time I ever played Halo was in my brother's room with my mom and him sitting beside me and, you know, helping me figure out the controls and select a difficulty and all that stuff. When I got my first Xbox 360 in the Christmas of like 07 or 08, I don't remember what year it was, but I got it, and I got it with a copy of Halo 3, and I was literally so excited when I opened those presents that I just ran to my room to start setting it up without even opening my other presents. Like, I was just so excited about those two things specifically, I ran to my room and completely ignored everything else. In 2009, I got Modern Warfare 2, and my mom got me an Xbox Live subscription, which granted, I probably should not have been playing on Xbox Live at 10 years old, but, you know, looking back on it, it's pretty sweet to have those memories because not a lot of people do. But with that story specifically, I also remember being pretty upset that I couldn't play that day because I didn't have one of those little wireless adapter things that you needed for the original Xbox 360. So we had to wait a couple days and then go get one, and it was a whole thing, right? And then from there, especially after getting Xbox Live, just years of memories playing games online with my friends, be it competitively or casually, or even just sitting in party chat while we all played single player games, you know? That was it, man. That was the stuff. And Xbox, and I guess Halo, to a very large extent, facilitated that. There would be no MajorCalzone without Halo, without an Xbox. You know, I would not have the love for online gaming like I do, or I guess like I did, without Halo 3 and, you know, Black Ops 2, Modern Warfare 2, whatever. So it really saddens me to see what's happened with the Xbox brand. Now, I don't feel bad for Microsoft or Xbox in the slightest. They did this to themselves with their just piss poor business after the Xbox 360 era and their piss poor handling of the Halo franchise and Gears of War too. Like, Gears of War, I would say, is not as integral as Halo was to Xbox, but Gears of War was another series that kept me playing on Xbox specifically. It was like, well, I want an Xbox One because I want to be able to play the new Gears of War games on it. Now Gears of War is on PC and PlayStation 5. It's just like, why? There's no reason to have an Xbox anymore. But again, to sort of bring that point home, is it's just sad to see this almost integral part of my adolescence and growing up. It's just sad to see what it's become. And again, I don't feel bad for Microsoft because they did this to themselves. And again, and I guess I also want to say that Sony and Nintendo are not darlings either. They haven't done everything right always, but they have sure handled their brand identities a hell of a lot better than Microsoft and Xbox has. And seeing Halo Campaign Evolved come to PlayStation 5, while I think it's great, and I'm very happy for all the diehard PlayStation fans who always wanted to buy into Halo but never wanted to buy into an Xbox, I'm glad to see that they're finally going to be able to experience this franchise and this series that I love so goddamn much. But I'd be lying if I said that it didn't sort of signify to me that Xbox is just done. Will Microsoft release new consoles after the Series X and S? Who knows? You know, I can't say. I would be surprised if they did, though. Like, I do not see why they would continue to release hardware if they're just going to release all of their software on everything. You know, maybe they make like a PlayStation Portal-esque thing that can do like cloud streaming. I guess that would be kind of cool, but I don't see them making like main consoles anymore, which sucks. Not just because, you know, this thing that I loved so much is just dead and gone now, but it means that Sony and Nintendo don't have a third competitor, and they haven't really had a third competitor for a long time now, like I just pretty much went over. Like, Microsoft has been in the toilet, or I guess Xbox has sort of been circling the drain for a very long time now, since the Xbox One generation especially. It just sucks that they're not going to have the competition they need to make their products better. They don't exactly have a monopoly because they're still competing with each other, but Nintendo and Sony have never really directly competed, at least in recent times. Nintendo has not always, but just has very recently been like its own thing. You know, you buy Nintendo to play Nintendo, and then before you had a choice of do I buy a PlayStation or an Xbox, but now it's pretty much just you just buy an Xbox, and then you buy any of the Xbox games that you want on PlayStation. Yeah, that's all I really gotta say. I'm just sad that this thing that I grew up with and I loved so much in my childhood and adolescence is essentially like just, it's dead and gone. There's really no chance for it to come back. Maybe I will eat my words and maybe Microsoft will come out with the Xbox 720 and it's like the 360 but better, and Halo will come back and just be this amazing series that everybody's gonna want to play, but I just don't see that happening. I think that time is long gone, but I am very happy and very fortunate to have gotten to experience it when it was around. So, hey, thanks for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch all the way to the end here. Feel free to leave a comment down below expressing your thoughts and opinions. I always love reading the comments. It's one of my favorite parts of making videos. Drop a like on the video if you feel that it deserves it. And if you want to see more from me, click that subscribe button and turn them notifications on. But that's all that I got for now. Make sure you take care of yourself, drink lots of water, get plenty of rest, all that good stuff. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.